Okay, ladies and gentlemen, men and women, boys and girls all across the fruited plains. This is Gary Keith coming to you live from Raleigh, North Carolina on this June 12th, 2023, where we get the opportunity to hear about the psychology of the sale from the doctor of insurance himself, where I get to provide some sort of remedies and some prescriptions and some healing for our clients out there in the presentations in which we give, especially those in which we don't help or can't help or unable to help because perhaps we didn't dot an I across a T or did something in the process to help us close those sales. This is where you're going to learn how to do that at a greater degree, at a higher level. Not only will you learn the what to say, but why you're saying what you're saying, because that's just what's going to give you the ammunition that you need to get better at what you're doing. And then you can learn also how to say it maybe a little bit better through the process by using voice inflections, by learning about body language, by what's going on when Miss Betty or Mr. Billy is folding their arms or furrowing their eyebrows down, or their mouth is crooked, or their body language is not appealing to the situation, how to engage them more readily so they're eager to take advantage of what you're doing and be able to bless their family's life in a bigger and better way. That's what we're learning in the psychology of the sale. I want you to write this down and remember that taking notes is so important in what you do, especially when you're learning a profession. That's how you get better at what you do, by taking a note, making a bullet point, going back and refreshing your mind and your memory, and then implementing what you took down. If you don't take the last step, which is the implementation of it, you never really improve or get better at what you're doing. So please take a note, several notes. One dull pencil is better than two sharp minds. I can promise you that. Become an avid note taker. So get your devices out, iPad, iPhone, whatever you're using, whether it's an old pen or paper, make sure you take some notes and go back and reflect on these things. Remember, in this process, everybody loves to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. I want you to write that down at the top of your paper tonight, because that's something you're going to live by on a day-to-day basis for the rest of your life, as long as you're in the sales world. You think about it for just a moment. The people that you encounter in your life when you get ready to go buy something, it could be a furniture store, it could be going in to buy some clothing, it could be buying a car, a house, or whatever. Everybody loves to buy. They love the buying atmosphere of holding on to something that's new, something that's fresh, something that's clean. No wonder when you go buy a new car, they put you in that car. They let you smell the interior. They let you feel how it drives, the acceleration, the handling of the steering wheel. They let you get a sense of the music inside there as they crank it up. They want you to feel like you're owning that vehicle. That's a great sales technique and getting people to buy. Okay, so I want you to do that, but see, you have a problem in the product that you're offering. You can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't hear it, you can't see it, you can't taste it. So you're going to have to become great at storytelling, great at painting pictures and a vision for Miss Betty or Mr. Billy to be able to grasp and feel. It's almost like they can taste it. It's almost like they can see it, and they can hear it, they can feel it. They're that close to it, even though you have nothing. You have nothing for them to be able to do that with. For those of you that live in Raleigh, which I do, and I go to Crabtree Valley Mall, and you go at the top deck up there sometimes, you drive in, you park somewhere, and you walk in those double doors, those sliding doors that open, the top deck of the Crabtree Valley Mall. If you know what I'm talking about, the first thing that you do and you sense is Auntie's, is it Auntie's or Auntie's pretzels. That aroma is absolutely crippling. I mean, that's why they survived there for so long. They're in a perfect location, perfect spot. The line's always a mile long. That's because the aroma hits your nasal passages so strongly that even though you weren't planning on buying one of those pretzels, you do it anyway, because it involved that sense. And once it's in there, and then you see it, you got two senses involved now. You go, I gotta have one. The line's always long. That pretzel place dominates the food places up there at Crabtree Valley Mall because of the aroma when you open the doors. That's what you have to learn to do in the sales process, selling an intangible product. which is called life insurance. Everybody loves to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. What type of atmosphere are you creating in the home with Mr. Bill and Miss Betty? What atmosphere are you creating on the telephone before you ever see them? What does it sound like? How do you come across? What's your door knock approach like whenever you're there? Is it salesy, sleazy, wham bam, thank you, mamish? If that's a word, how are you coming across? Would you buy from you? Would you let you in the door? Would you make an appointment with you if you heard yourself over the phone? Give me some hands up in here on my chat line if you've recorded your phone script or phone presentation on a recording device, on your phone, on some other device. Give me some hands up if you recorded yours yet. Good job. Shantae, great job. Clarence, great. I want to see everybody's hand go up because good job, Anita. You're saying certain things that perhaps you shouldn't be saying, or it's not being enunciated very clearly, or you really couldn't make it out. You slurred your words, or Mr. Bill or Miss Betty had no clue what you were talking about because it rambled and had run-on sentences because perhaps you were nervous. Record your phone presentation. Now, how many of you have had someone go out with you and do a recording of your door knock presentation? Take somebody with you in the car. I had this done. So I want you to record this door knock presentation for me. They step to the side. They don't have to be right there in front of everything. You step to the side over here, have your phone ready. I want you to record my door knock. Have you had that done yet? Raise your hand if someone has recorded, or have you had your door knock recorded yet? You want to. So you can test your body language. Good job, Clarence. Test your eye contact. Test, are you hovering over Miss Betty, especially if you're a man and a large man, a big man, a tall man, and you're too intimidating to little Miss Betty? Did you take a step back, especially if you're a man speaking to a female, so you're not overbearing the situation? Take a look at that. Those are all key principles and important things to do when doing the door knock. And we can hit door knock later, but I'm just kind of giving you a few things to do. And everything you do, you've got to be able to create an atmosphere of buying instead of selling. Okay, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Lastly, on the initial takeoff this evening, that is that, gosh, I lost my train of thought. That is that people don't, you've heard this before as well, don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Sincerity goes a long ways. Being genuine goes miles and miles and miles for you. Someone who's not genuine, not sincere, people can read it like a book. If you're commenting on things in someone's house and it's not true, and they know it's not true, you just hurt yourself. If there's something that is not right, then don't comment on that. Always be genuine, always be sincere. Remember that in everything that you do, people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Please write that one down. People will long forget what you say, but they won't forget how you made them feel. How you making your clients feel? How you making the prospect feel? When they see you, hear you, when they come across with you, when they're chatting with you, how do you think you make them feel? And that's what we're talking about. That's the psychology of the sale. Now, for those of you that are brand new, we hit on some things last week, and we'll kind of refresh those for a little bit so we jump into some new stuff tonight. Number one is, what do you know about your market? Have you learned your market? Are you learning your market? Do you understand this market? That's one of the key pieces that most people forget when they're selling anything. Think about what you're selling. If I'm selling a Mercedes, I'm going to probably speak to you a little bit differently, and my market's going to be a little bit different than someone if I'm working at the Chevy dealership. It's just probably a little bit of a different clientele. I want to know my market. I want to learn them. I want to understand the language, speak how they speak, walk like they walk, talk like they talk. I'll give you a perfect example as we move forward. Today, I knocked on the door. Mr. Billy, he was real hesitant about letting me in. I was kind, polite, sincere, genuine. I said, only take a couple minutes of your time and I'll be out of your hair, Mr. Billy. He said, okay, come on in. Very reluctantly, very somber. And many of them are going to be like this. Why? Because they've had experiences with prior salespeople they didn't like, they didn't respect, and they couldn't get rid of. That's why you're getting pushback, because of what's in their brain of prior experiences of people who were in the wham bam thank you ma'am business, not genuine, not sincere, and didn't care. But it's different. So I gotta hang in there a little bit. I walk in and I come in through the front door, right where the kitchen is, and Mr. Billy has something on that he's cooking. Now look, I'm very observant when I walk in the door. And so I looked in there, and I'm in the South, and he had something some Southerners call hoe cake or cornbread on a round skillet. Now, if you're not from the South and maybe in the country, or maybe you didn't go to your grandmother's and grandfather's house, or maybe your parents' house, that may not ring a bell to you. But if you know what a hoe cake is, or cornbread on a round skillet on the stove, give me some thumbs up somewhere. Give me some hands up if you know what that is. Well, I do. I know exactly what that is. Not everybody will. A lot of people cook cornbread in a rectangular baking thing in the oven and the Jiffy cornbread stuff, and they pop it in there. It's not what the Southern people do. So immediately I comment on his cornbread. I knew he grew up in the South. I knew he was probably a country guy, because that's what we ate. We immediately got on this conversation of country, and that acres and acres of gardens and vegetables and cows and chickens and pigs, and they worked in tobacco fields like I did. Instant credibility and instant connection with Mr. Billy. All of a sudden he's laughing, he's smiling. Find some things like that, and people all of a sudden start warming up to you and for you. Know your market, know who you're doing. Most of the final expense markets, a blue collar market, it's salt of the earth. It's maybe a little bit lower in the economic totem pole. Wonderful people, beautiful people, people who a handshake when they grew up meant something. People who work hard, still got calluses on their hands. I love it. That's your blue collar. That's the folks that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you're a different part of the country, maybe it's a little bit different. That's who we are in the Southeast, for sure. After you know your market, after you understand this market, that Miss Betty maybe gets out of bed late, perhaps she is still in her curlers or house coat at noon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She's watching The Price is Right. She's watching the Western Channel. She's watching Jerry Springer. She's watching stuff like this. I understand that, because that's who they are. That's the market. I get it. Find out who your market is. Get familiar with it. Speak their language, because everybody loves to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. Figure out what their buying hot buttons are. Next, we've already covered this before, but it's so important that you learn how to not just do a rapport or a warm up, but I call it going deeper. It's making a connection with people. There's a difference. If you want to learn about this, read this book called Everyone Communicates, but Very Few Connect. So true. Relationships, your spouse, your kids. Kids are a big one, especially if you got teenage kids. I'm telling you right now, most of the parents do most of the talking, most of the communicating, but there's not the connection. We don't give the teenager a chance to tell us what they really feel, what they're really thinking. Therefore, they clam up, they shut up, they build up walls. And next thing you know, you don't even know who your child is anymore. And that's not in all cases, but it's in a lot of teenagers. I mean, I've raised 8 teenagers. I've taught youth Sunday school at church for many moons. So I sort of understand the way teenagers are. and they get this attitude and nobody understands them and they shut their doors and, they just listen to their own music and nobody can tell them anything and they're on a different wavelength. And that's because we're trying to communicate by us speaking, but not the connection side. Same goes in sales. Same goes in sales. You'll learn more by asking than you will by telling. Write that one down. That's called the Socratic method of selling. You'll learn more by asking than you will by telling. Ask questions. That's how you become a genius in life, is by asking questions and not assuming anything. And let people tell you what their needs are, what their hot buttons are, what motivates them, what inspires them, what their values are. That's how you learn how to sell so much. But so many salespeople are so busy with this thing right here, going 100 miles an hour. And they're scared and afraid to ask questions. Pause, relax, slow down, ask questions, and they'll sell themselves. That's communication. That's your connection section. And then third is building a credibility statement, a personal credibility statement. It's being able to look someone in the eyes and tell them why you do what you do for a living. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if that's done right, it'll create goosebumps on your arms. It'll make the hair on the back of your head stand up. Remember, people will long forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And what my aim here is to knock out all the competition. There's nobody out there doing a personal credibility statement. You say, Gary, why do you do that? Why do you take that time? Why? We don't need to do that in a final expense life insurance sale. We could just easily just forget that nonsense. They don't need to know why I'm here or what I'm doing or who I am or establish my personal credibility. All they want to know is whole life, what's the rates, and tell me how to get it and see if I can qualify. Okay, I get it. To a certain point, that might be true. But Gary is not just trying to make a sale today. He's creating a feeling and an emotion that they never forget him. He stays on the books. They refer all the family. They refer their friends. They refer the neighbors because I made a real connection. It wasn't just a sales transaction. There's a big difference, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Billy, I saw today. I said, Mr. Bill, you've had this Liberty Bankers policy for 6 years. When's the last time you spoke to your agent? I haven't seen her since I took out this policy. That tells me a whole lot. A whole lot. If I'm not seeing and talking to my clients at least once a year, and I got thousands of them, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I'm not in the business to bless lives, change lives, and make a difference and impact the world. I personally believe, my opinion, that's the wham bam, thank you ma'am sale. That's make a commission today and forget them, love them, leave them, you're out the door. I don't. I establish relationships. Relationships is what keeps them on the books. They remember you and they refer you. That's why I send out birthday cards, holiday cards. That's why I send out thank you cards. That's why I hand out coffee mugs. That's why I call them up a year later on their annual review. Why? Relationship. Keep on the books. Get repeat business. This is the best referral generating business in the insurance market. I'll challenge you. Give me a better referring insurance product and market in the life insurance industry. Give me one. Doesn't exist. I've been selling for 30 years in the insurance business. Nobody refers better than Miss Betty. Nobody. Why? Because she had to put away a loved one that had very little to no life insurance. And she was the oldest sibling or the sister or the family member, and it all fell upon her. And she's out there begging, borrowing, and stealing, trying to find someone to contribute to her brother, her child's funeral. That's huge. That's a big impact. I sold long-term care insurance for years. I love that product. It's a very emotional sales, but it was a high-end product. You think those people referred anybody? No. They thought they put their pants on differently. They lived in too nice of houses. They're not going to go and put their name on the line for anything. Now, Miss Betty, she cares about her neighbors and her friends and her family. So does Mr. Billy. It is the best referral generating product in the insurance market, bar none. Matter of fact, once you get so good at this, you don't need to buy as many leads anymore. I mean, seriously, you don't, because you got more referrals, you know what to do with. But that's a different topic of a different day. What I'm trying to say to you is you learn that credibility statement and you learn to paint a different picture of who you are. Miss Betty will keep it for many years and refer a lot of people to you in the process. All right. After that, we started talking last week on need development, peeling the onion, learning to get to the core of the sale. This is important. This is that doctor-patient relationship I talked to you about. Remember, the reason why I call myself the doctor of insurance is because I got to learn how to make myself credible to the point that I'm like an authority figure in their life they trust, they like the doctor, the attorney, the banker, the accountant, someone in their life that they look up to and go, that person is just as important to me in my life as they are. And that's why I tell myself. Now, maybe that's pride and ego and narcissistic or whatever else you want to call it. But I say, you know what? I'm just as important as that doctor that's telling her she's got pains here, here, and here. Here's your prescriptions for here, here, and here. Take these, and that should help make you feel better. You know what? We do the same thing. How many lives are we blessing? What a difference are we making in the neighborhood and the community? You gotten a phone call yet from a child, from a brother or sister, and they're bawling their head off on the other end of the line, and they're going, Gary, I found your card and my sister has died, and I'm hoping and praying this policy's still in effect, and I want to call you just to make sure it is. And as I'm seeing this, I'm getting goosebumps on me right now. I've had so many of those calls in my career. And I'll say to myself, I think it is, pray it is, but let me call the company just to make sure for you. I make the call. I get the claim process started. I get the form sent out. I go back and visit with the family, help them fill the stuff out. I help them send the death certificates. Right? I do what I say I'm going to do. It makes an impact. Not that this is the primary focus, but those kids go, wow, that guy's impressive. You know what? We need to talk to you about some life insurance too, but not right now. Got it. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks. That's how you build relationships in the life insurance business, where this thing turns into a cash cow because you're doing it right the first time. Don't be such in a hurry to get out of that house and go to the next one. Love the one you're with. Take care of them. Massage that situation, in my personal opinion, because it'll lead you to a lot of business down the road. So we talked about need development, peeling that onion, getting to the core, becoming the doctor-patient relationship, poking here, here, and here, and here. Does that hurt? So I do that. How does that feel? That's the need development section. That's what you're doing, uncovering the need. You're peeling back the outer layers. So when you ask the question, what was it that caused you to send this card in? And they go, well, I probably need to look at some more insurance because, I need to look at some more insurance for my kids. You can take that and run with it, but that's a superficial answer. I want you to learn how to get your prospect to sell themselves without you doing all the selling. See, when you go to somewhere and you get ready to buy something and you've already made up your mind or convinced yourself, nobody can talk you out of it. Nobody. Because the value in your mind is way high. The cost has become way skinny. And that's why you buy what you buy. You justify it because you've convinced yourself the value is so large. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to buy it even when you can't afford it. And that's why America is in major, major debt, because we put things on credit cards, even when we can't afford things. Why? Because you convince yourself that you needed it, wanted it, desired it, and the value was there, and you'll pay it off down the road. Well, that's what happens in life. You've got to learn to create value. You've got to learn to create that need, that want, by getting Miss Betty to sell herself. See, really, in sales, it's really an oxymoron. Think of it for a second. You think you're trying to sell them, you really aren't. You're just asking the right questions and pushing the right buttons to get them to sell themselves. You may be saying, Gary, you've gone a little bit too deep now in the psychology stuff, man. But it's how we work. It's how we're wired that we can actually get people to sell themselves. And that's how they keep it. That's what keeps them from getting buyer's remorse and canceling the next day. So Miss Betty says, well, I probably just sent this in because I need to look at getting some more insurance. Now, what you might do, which a lot of agents do with no problem. Now, go get your prescriptions and let me see what you're taking. And you look at the bottles, you go, okay, well, based on that, you qualify for Mutual of Omaha. Yep, whole life company. And, lasts forever and rates don't go up and benefits are great and bills cash value. And here's a $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000 plan. Which one of those will meet your needs the best? Okay, that was like a whirlwind to me. How about if you do this? So you say you sent that in so that you might want to get some more insurance for your family. Why is that so important to you? Nobody asked that question. Because see, now you're becoming an emotional sale, which is what this is, and you get into the core of what really motivates Miss Betty. I want to hear it. And here's the stories. You ready? Here's what you're going to hear. Well, let me tell you something. Both my parents died in the past 2 years. I love them dearly, but neither one of them had much of a pot to pee in. My mom had a $5,000 policy and she wanted to be buried. My dad had a $7,000 policy and he wanted to be buried. The funeral both ran $15,000 each for both of them. That's $30,000. They had $12,000 between the two of them. I had to go take out a personal loan, or I had to get money from my kids, or I had to get money from my brothers and sisters, try to help, do the rest of this. Now I've got a loan at the bank. I love them dearly. I tell you what, I don't ever want this to happen to my own children. I want to make sure I got enough insurance in there. She's going to tell you some story. They're going to tell you some story of what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, they need to hear themselves telling that story. All you got to do is say, why is that so important to you? To make sure that you get a little extra insurance. Now you get to the core of this thing. Well, Miss Betty, being devil's advocate, what happens if your kids come around and say, Mom, why in the world are you doing that? Don't you know we're going to take care of you? All I'm doing is anticipating the objections before they happen. It's called uncovering landmines, right? Are you kidding me? My kids can barely take care of themselves. I got a boy right now, he's struggling with child support with a couple of kids they had. And I got a daughter right now who's in and out of her own jobs, and it's tough for her to even take care of her own family. You see how emphatic people get? And all you're doing is asking questions, and they're selling themselves. That's called peeling the onion, need development section of your presentation. If you learn to get down to the core, it tells you what motivates people. So if I'm selling cars and you come in and you're looking at a certain car and say, gosh, what kind of car are you looking for today? Oh, you are. Why is that model and type and brand so important to you? Watch people go nuts, right? They'll tell you everything instead of, now here's what most salespeople do. Oh, so that model and that brand, boy, let me tell you what, you couldn't have picked a better model and brand than that one. That one's been chosen in Car and Driver as the best thing on the Consumer Reports, and that resale value, and this thing will hold up forever, and the gas milers do this. Really way overboard. And sometimes people oversell versus a listing. Socratic method of selling. People love to buy, they hate to be sold. Socratic method says you learn more by asking than you do by telling. As a parent, if you are a parent, I want to challenge you to do that with your own children, especially if you have teenagers. Practice with a spouse. You're going to want to go off on something because you got the answer, you got the knowledge, you got the experience, you've been around the block a time or two. Sometimes as a parent, you got to play dumb. You just do, especially with teenagers. Well, at least that's my opinion. And you learn to ask questions. So why do you feel that way? Or what's got you feeling that way? It's okay to do that. So I was just curious, where'd you learn that, and where'd that come from, or why does that resonate with you, or how come that's the case? Or learning to ask questions with people, whatever you do in life, get you a long ways to get to where you want to be without jumping right in and providing the answer. That's your need development section. Now look, there's so many ways you can do this. Last week we talked about how to become a chameleon, how to mirror your client's needs. Miss Betty, Mr. Billy says, gosh, I got plenty of insurance. I'm doing good right now. And Mr. Billy said that today. Oh, I got plenty. I got two $10,000 policies, and that's going to bury me and leave me some left over for my son. Oh, that's fantastic. That sounds really good, Mr. Billy. So let me ask you a question. Why is it so important you to have two policies like that? And you listen. He says, well, I just want to make sure I'm covered, and I want to make sure I'm protected, and I want to make sure my kids have enough, and blah, 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 blah. Now, what do you hope to do or accomplish with those two policies? You see the questioning that comes around with that? You find out what the real motivation is. Well, I'm hoping the one's going to bury me, and then one's going to leave some to my two sons and some grandkids. And so you plan on being buried, Mr. Billy. Absolutely. Do you know roughly about what the burial costs are running this day and time? Not really. And when's the last time been to a funeral home or helped put someone away properly? Gosh, it's been a long time. No worries, Mr. Billy. Without being fancy, Mr. Billy, let me show you a couple of charts here. And there's some charts in the back office there that you can pull out and show what the cost of funerals are running right now. It's running about $15,000 without being fancy. So you got two $10,000 policies, Mr. Billy. Congratulations, that's good. You won't leave a little bit of money back for your grandsons. Your sons, and through your grandkids. So that makes sense. And Mr. Billy, you're only 70 right now. And you said your mother, she lived about 85, and your dad was about 86. It sounds like you got good genes in your family. Oh yeah, you're probably gonna crack 100, Mr. Billy, more than likely. Listen, you're only 70 right now. You're probably gonna live another 20 or 30 years. According to this chart here, about 20, 30 years down the road, the cost of funerals will be about $25,000. So with that in mind, Mr. Bill, you got 20,000 now. You want to take care of your burial, which you about 5,000 short, but you also leave some behind for your sons and grandson, which is about another 10,000. I'm going to recommend to you, Mr. Bill, what you have right now is a good foundation, but based upon that, you're going to need a little bit more to help take care of your family down the road. Does that make sense? Yes. You'll sell a ton of add-on policies just by showing those charts of how much the funerals are costing right now, and they can be projected to go up through the years. You'll sell a ton of add-ons just by doing that. I saw someone last week, and she had several policies, and she was just dying because she couldn't even almost afford to pay some of her bills and get her car fixed. She's sitting there with $4,000 of cash value in those policies. $4,000. She didn't even know it. I said, Miss Betty, I said, did you realize that when you die, your family doesn't get the cash value? You see the power of asking questions? The power of asking questions. Don't tell people, ask them. Did you realize that when you pass away, your family does not get the cash value? All they're going to get is the face amount. All of a sudden she paused, her eyes got big, and she perked up and says, what do you mean? I said, the cash value in your policy now is about $4,000. And when you pass away, your family's going to get the $25,000, the face amount, but they won't get the $4,000. That cash back can only be used while you're alive. Because when you die, the family doesn't get it. So let me make a recommendation for you. See, this is the doctor coming out now. I created a problem, showed her a problem, found a need, found a pain point, as the doctor does. Then the doctor prescribes something. Let me make a recommendation for you. That's what authority people do in life. The attorney, the accountant, the banker, the doctor, they all make recommendations. So let me recommend something to you, Miss Betty. Since COVID, give me a good reason as to why this is happening. Since COVID, a lot of people are passing away with not enough life insurance or probably too little. And so the rates and prices of some of these plans have come down. That is very true with Baltimore Life coming out with the A priority product. That's my excuse because that's true. And Miss Betty's got 25,000. They start at 25,000. So I know where I'm going. And so they've come down the rates on some of this stuff, Miss Betty. And so there's a way that you can have your cake and eat it too. I mean, you're saying that you can't even pay some of your bills and your car's out there messed up. You probably could use that $4,000 while you're alive, couldn't you? She said, yeah. I said, but if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Remember, the fear of loss is greater than the fear of gain. I said, so let me make a recommendation to you. I want you to get a brand new policy because your health is still good. You get your $4,000 cash out so you can do some things in life that you can really need and use it for. And let's get you a brand new policy because your health is still good and you're probably qualified. If I can do that for you, get you a brand new policy, get your cash out too, and we have your cake and eat it too. Do you feel like that would benefit you? She almost fell on the floor. She said, are you serious? You better believe that would help me. That would help me immensely. And she got real emphatic. Well, I got to see if I can get you qualified first. Oh, no problem. What do we need to do? Listening, asking questions. Everybody loves to buy, but nobody likes to be sold. And it comes through the Socratic method of selling. Now, this is getting a little deeper than what you're learning on some of the other calls. This is the psychology behind what you're doing. I realize you may be sort of new. Take this in bite-sized pieces. Write some notes down, apply some stuff. I'm going to give you some bullet points so you can start working on this, so you can start practicing this. Number one, I want you to learn something about your market this week. I want you to learn about your market. Who are they? What makes them tick? What makes them get out of bed? What motivates this market? What do they eat, drink? What do they watch on TV? What do they do for fun? What's their family like in their life? Learn something about your market. What is it that motivates them? I want you to be able to say it, to know it, because once you do, you'll understand what's going on. That's why in this market, if you understand your market, you can take a lead and go door knock the neighbor. Because the final expense market is not only where that lead is, but it's on both sides and across the street and up and down that street. You literally could take that one lead and hit everybody on that street and be in the final expense market, and they pretty much are doing the same thing. They pretty much have the same values and beliefs and come from the same similar backgrounds. I'm taking a broad brush to that, but that's the case. That's why Rob this morning says, when you get to a lead, you go to the neighbor. And especially if you see them in the yard, you always speak to them. You always have your card ready. Hey, Mr. Billy, how you doing there? Yeah, well, you won't know his name. Or, hey, how's it going? Sorry to catch you off guard here. Listen, I just got a card here for you. I want to hand to you. I was just here seeing Miss Betty here and about the state-approved final expense program for seniors. And there's some benefits that seniors are entitled to and qualify for. And I just want to give you my card here. And do you have just a few minutes, Mr. Billy? I can go over this with you and see if you qualify as well. That's all you're doing. There's some benefits you're entitled to and qualify for as well. Like by seeing Miss Betty, maybe I can help you as well. That's why you're able to do that, because of that market, understanding your market. They're home during the day typically. They're retired or disabled typically. They're watching TV typically, the things I talked about earlier, from the Western Channel to whatever channel else you can think of, from The Price is Right to Judge Judy to Jerry Springer. I mean, that's what's going on for a lot of them. For others, it may not be so, but most of them either disabled, retired, blue collar typically. They're home during the day. A lot of them have either a country background or some type of industry or blue collar type background. That's the market that you're dealing with. I love it. They're unassuming, typically of faith-based people. You may say to yourself, well, I'm not faith-based or I'm not God-based. Okay, well, you don't have to be, but understand that your market is. And they'll pray with you and they'll talk about God and they'll do things of that nature. And you'll get more food and more hugs and more tears than you'll probably ever get anywhere else of anything else you sell. That's your market. And if they offer you food, you take it because that means something to them. They grew up in a time period where neighbors went to neighbors' houses and they ate with each other and they cooked for each other, and having family meals and neighborhood meals means something to them. I realize we don't live in that world anymore, but a lot of this market, it does. And sometimes I've eaten some stuff I didn't even realize what it was. It didn't even look that great, but I still ate it and it ended up being good. So get used to that. And Miss Betty, she offers it, you take it. Well, at least I try to. Okay. Now, so understand that market. Get into that. That's number one lesson for you this week, or assignment. I really want you to get to know. That's going to help you immensely closing more sales. I call it closing the close ones, the ones that you're barely losing, the ones that slip through your fingers, the ones that didn't quite make it, is because perhaps you don't understand that market. Understand it. Number two, this week, I want you to make a connection with people instead of just communicating. Connection is you're asking more questions than you're telling more stuff. You're asking questions, not interrogative style, not that you're, someone who's interrogating people, but you're asking in such a way that flows, that's easy, that makes sense, that's making a connection. And if you want to, go buy the book. Everyone communicates, but very few connect. Learn to connect with your kids, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, neighbors, people you go to church with, they'll go to church with, peers, coworkers, whatever. Learn to connect. We all have something we want to say, and I get it. I truly get it. And salespeople are some of the best at it because we do a lot of talking. I get that too. But we don't always have to be. Pausing is good. Taking a deep breath is great. Sitting back and listening is amazing because they'll tell you what their needs are, what their wants are, their desires. And a good salesperson, watch the next time you go somewhere and you're looking to buy something. Watch what the salesperson is doing and how they are working the situation. Are they just blabbering all over the place? And you're saying to yourself, my gosh, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to get away from this person. What excuse can I make up in my mind right now that I can get away from them? Hurry, somebody call me from the house. Honey, call me. You shoot a text to someone to call you right now. Go, you're trying your best to get out of that store or that situation. I get it. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever been in that situation. You're praying. Somebody, please call me. This person is driving me nuts. But then watch someone who's like a surgeon. A surgeon. And you can tell it. And you want to try to maybe wiggle out of it, but they're so darn good and so darn effective that they've got you melting in the palm of their hands. And it's like putty. And you're like, well, I really wanted to get this. I didn't know that I was going to get it today. But this person is making it so easy for this to happen. And I like them so much. And they're treating me so professional that, darn it, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing today. That's what you say in your mind. That's what happened. That's what's happened in your prospect's mind. There comes a point when a trigger goes off and they go, either they're going to buy from you or not buy from you. And a lot of times you can tell it in body language. You can tell it. I know. I used to sell to a bunch of engineers around here, around the Raleigh-Durham area, selling long-term care insurance, doctors. They tell me that they have the highest per capita in the country of PhDs in anywhere in the nation at the Research Triangle Park here in this area. I believe it because I ran into half of them. And pipe smoking, whatever you want to call it, glasses down their nose, eyebrows furred, arms folded. It's like, oh my gosh, not this again. Engineers. I was intimidated at first because I thought they were different than me. They're not. They're human beings. And once that switch went off in my brain, you know what? I'm the doctor of insurance, and I'm going to start behaving myself like that. When I look in the mirror in the morning, I'm no longer looking at myself as a guy peddling insurance down the street and to some, Joe Schmo, that nobody likes or trusts or believe in, and that doesn't really want what I'm doing. So I'm changing that attitude, and I'm changing the way I see myself, and I'm going to change the way I conduct myself in their homes. Matter of fact, I'm going to challenge them, not literally, but through my personal credibility statement, which is your next part. I'm going to look them square in the eye and go, let me explain to you, John and Mary, why I do what I do for a living, why I'm here tonight. I learned to buck up to that a little bit, and I learned to carry some courage with me, even though I was trembling and shaking at the knees. I said, I'm going to tell them why I'm here, and I'm going to come across as the doctor of insurance. And I started doing that. And I started noticing something. People's body language changed. Because now they realized they were dealing with a professional, an expert, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Nothing had really changed. I still the same human being, the same person, but I carried myself differently. And I said, I dedicated my life to helping people get things in place before it's too late, John and Mary. I've committed my life the past so many years in making sure that these things are taken care of so it's not a burden upon your children. Started doing things like that, using power phrases, impact words, committed, dedicated. And then I started looking in the eyes going, you know, the best part about my job, John and Mary, is when your daughter, Betty, is going to call me one day and she's going to say, Gary, look, I understand my mom and dad had a policy with you. We need to use it. You see how my voice inflections change, my tone changes, how I get lower and serious. But did you also notice how I painted a picture? Remember I said at the beginning of training tonight, they can't touch it, smell it, feel it, taste it, or hear it. They can't. Only you can create that through your stories and examples where they actually go like, gosh, I can almost touch it. I want it. This has come through stories. Stories sell. Benefits tell. Anybody can tell a feature and a benefit of a product. That means nothing to people really to a certain degree. Stories matter. And when I was selling a lot of long-term care insurance, which was a high-end product, I learned to tell the stories of people who waited too long, who lost all their assets in a nursing home, an assisted living facility, or home health care. I listened to that and I told those stories over and over and over. And it happened to be the time that Christopher Reeve got up one morning and fell off his horse and became paralyzed. I would tell that story. Superman, even Superman needs long-term care help. I remember looking at people in the eyes and telling them this true story. The sad part was, John and Mary, he's lost most of his savings and his assets and having around-the-clock care. Thank goodness he has a friend named Robin Williams, which is helping him pay for a lot of his care now. I think you'd have to agree, most of us don't have a friend like Robin Williams, do we? No. And once you learn to tell stories, use examples, that's what gets people to want what you have. Does this work for cold calls? I'm not doing any door-to-door. You mean cold calls over the phone?
Am I allowed to unmute to ask?
Yes, you are.
Okay, no, so I guess what I'm saying is that when you purchase leads,
And you
Is this-
taking that lead to the door, or you calling them over the phone?
I'm talking to them over the phone.
And these are leads that are older or brand new?
It's a variety of them. I've got some age leads, I've got new leads, but I have not done any door-to-door presentations. It's all been over the phone.
Because you're doing telesales. Is that what you're selling everybody over the phone?
Yes, sir. I'm talking to them over the phone. I have not done any door-to-door presentations.
Right. So you're not making an appointment and going to their house. You're just talking to people
No.
over the phone. Okay, got you.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes. Okay, great question. So yes, it has to be an abbreviated credibility statement. It has to be because you're not there in front of them, so the attention span is not as great. And so, and I realize you're on the phone, so it's got to be a little bit quicker. But I still do the same thing. I've done some over the phone sales and telesales. And so I do that connection as much as I can. I still do the same steps. I know my market, I do my connection, I do a small credibility statement because I have to. Now I go, Mr. Billy, let me tell you who you're dealing with here tonight. I want people to know this is not someone who just all of a sudden decided to get their insurance license today. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I realize you probably can't say that 30 years, and you may not even want to put a time part, but I've been doing this for quite a while. I've dedicated my life to helping people get things in place. I'm an independent broker. I represent many companies, not just one. I've committed my life helping seniors like yourself get things in place before it's too late. And Mr. Billy, listen, I know we only have a few minutes on the phone here, but listen, the best part about my job is when your daughter, Mary's going to call me one day and say, look, I understand my dad. So I'm going to do some abbreviated stuff of this because I want them to feel what we're talking about. I want them to get that emotional side. I realize that we have to be shortened, a little more abbreviated because I've had to do that. But I still think you ought to go through the proper steps and make a connection as well as credibility statement with them so they can feel who you are. Because I'm going to tell you, it's a little higher cancellation rate and the persistency is not quite as high when you do it over the phone as in person. But you can help that by doing that, doing a good post close, which we'll get into later, as well as sending them a birthday card, thank you card, stuff like that. Those are all powerful in keeping business on the books, whether it's over the phone or in person. All right, so you got some assignments. Learn your market, learn to make a connection by asking questions, learn a passionate credibility statement, especially if you're in person. They need to see it, feel it, hear it. And number 4, learn to peel the onion, go a little deeper on the needs section. So you sent this card in because you don't want to be a burden upon your daughter. Well, if you don't mind me asking, Miss Betty, why is that so important to you? When you ask that question, it's going to unlock a door that you've never known or seen or heard before. Don't get a little deeper. Let me put a little bit devil's advocate, Miss Betty. How about if your kids come by one day and they say, look, why don't you do this? Don't you want to take care of you, Mom? Watch Miss Betty sell herself. Watch it. Happens every time. Are you kidding me? What she'll do? No way. They can barely take care of themselves. She's selling herself on the process. Well, it sounds like the real reason why you sent this card in was not only to make sure you're not a burden upon your daughter, but you don't want your daughter to actually have to go through what you went through with your brother a couple years ago and having to go around asking people for money and people stiffing you, not showing up or not backing you up. Embarrassing. You couldn't even bury him. You had to end up cremating him, and that really hurt you. So you don't want your daughter to go through the same feelings. Is that what you're saying, Miss Betty? Yeah. Well, listen, as I said before, I'm what you call tongue in cheek here, Miss Betty, but a doctor of insurance. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm here to provide some remedies to your situation here. I know I can help you. Let me ask you a couple quick questions so you can get qualified first. If we can, I'll recommend a good company to you at a good rate. Does that make sense? Does that sound fair? Great. Those are the kind of steps you're taking through this process. Now, I'm taking a little bit longer to go through this. I'm trying to get deep with you. It's going to go a little smoother and quicker as you're doing this yourself. Get in the habit of asking more than telling. Get in the habit of creating a buying atmosphere instead of a selling atmosphere. Get in the habit of creating so much emotion that the people will never forget how you made them feel. I can promise you, as you do that, you're going to see your sales increase. You're going to be able to get those close ones that you're losing sometimes. You're going to be able to close more than you miss. Trust me, I used to be where probably many of you are. If I could close 1 out of 3, which is 33%, I felt really good. Now, if I'm not closing, especially in the final expense market, 9 out of 10, there's a problem. So I'm going to challenge you to take these notes that you took down tonight, implement them one by one. I've gone back and rehashed some stuff before going forward, because sometimes repetition is important when it comes to teaching, training, motivating, inspiring, and moving to the next level. So before I move to the next section, we just went over those first few steps again. All right, let me pause here before we sign off tonight. Any questions, other questions, comments, anything that's on your mind that you're struggling with, having a hard time with, something not making sense, something not connecting, you're missing things at the end, you get a lot of think about it. What questions do you have for me before we sign off tonight? Yes, as time goes along, I will cover objections. If you have one in particular that you want to mention now, I can definitely do that. Go ahead.
So the two that I hear the most is, one, I gotta talk to my daughter or my son about it. And the other one is, well, I just wanted a quote. They put in, they want to purchase, but then once you go through the whole process, then it's like, okay, well, can I get back with you? I just want a quote.
Yeah. And so this is all over the phone once again, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more of a challenge. I will give it that. That's why in telesales, we call it, you have to go through a lot more leads and a lot more people, a lot more presentations, because there's just not that connection. We've come across it as a telemarketer, and I know that's not who you are and what you're doing, but that happens. So,
So do you prefer door to door?
well, I prefer going to see them in person personally. Yes,
Okay, can you do leads door to door?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what we use as leads.
Okay, because the leads that I have, they're not local. They're just, they're in the area right now where I'm licensed, which is Atlanta, Georgia, and South Carolina. So it's not
Okay.
like I can just walk up to someone's house in South Carolina, because the leads that I'm getting are not, you know what I'm saying? They're not right
Yes.
around the corner. They're not in my area. They're not. So
You
that's
can,
why I've been having to do the telesales.
okay, you can get on a stand, you can get on a standing
And
lead
then I guess
order.
the other alternative would that be would for me to be, I just now thought of it, is when I do search for leads to make sure to try to find some in my area.
Yeah, you can speak to your upline manager about getting on a standing lead order, and you pick the county that you want your leads to be, and they'll mail for you in that county.
I'm sorry, say that again, sir.
I said, you can speak to your upline manager and they
Yes.
can help, they can
He-
help you order leads that are in specific counties for you.
Okay, all righty. I will do that because the leads that I did order, like I said, they're just kind of spread out between Georgia and South Carolina. They're not anything that's local.
And doing it that way, that's good for telesales. You just have to contact more people and talk to more people through telesales than you do in person. You'll
Okay.
close more people in person, but the downside that is you got to get in your car and you go see them. So there's give and take on both sides.
Okay. I'm comfortable with either one.
Okay, well, if you're comfortable with either one, to be honest with you, you're going to close more and keep more of the books in person,
Okay.
especially in final expense. Rob said it today on the call. He says, if you go do telesales, you probably should do mortgage protection. It's a different clientele of people. They're busy, they're working during the day, but they're home at night. That's a different ball game. But if you're going to do final expense, in my personal opinion, you ought to do it in person.
Okay.
So speak to your upline manager about ordering some local leads in the counties near you.
Okay, I sure will. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All righty. So next, how do you get clients to be honest about, remember their meds and diagnoses? Yeah, that's a great one. Well, what I try to do with everybody, I'm usually pretty successful with it. is not just bring me your bottles, but bring me your list that comes from the doctor's office. And if you can get that in your hands, which I do most of the time, and they got it. So don't just ask for the bottles, ask for the list from the doctor. Because once you start turning the pages on that list of medications from the doctors, guess what else is on that list? Anybody tell me? What is on that list of medications from the doctor? Called this several pages. What's on there? Anybody? Aha, you haven't seen it. It's about a no, not emergency contacts. It's a 3-page report of their medical diagnoses, not just their medicines, but what they have been treated for. It'll tell you about surgeries, what they're allergic to, what type of conditions they have. This is a actually great printout from the doctor's office on their health, everything. Miss Betty, do you mind if I look at this? I get permission. Oh no, go right ahead. It lists all the medicines, and then on the other pages are she's got COPD, she's got sleep apnea, she has used some oxygen in the past, she is a smoker, she's been diagnosed with hepatitis C, or it's all there. Everything that you want is right on that list. I know, it's pretty amazing. And once you see that, you know which direction to go. Okay, let's see. I'm thinking I'll be able to get them a policy of the company, then uncover things during the app process. But yeah, you're right about that, Sarah. That is frustrating. That's why if you can get that list, it's got all their medical diagnoses on it. Number one. Number two, if you can't, you got to get great at asking a lot of questions, not the superficial stuff. And Miss Betty, what medications are you currently taking? You grab your bottles, great. Now, what medications were you on the last year or two that you've gotten yourself off of, or you took yourself off of? They'll tell you. What were you taking that you stopped taking? Anything you can think of. Great. Now, what have you been in the hospital for in the last 5 years? You got to dig deep into that. Tell me about situations of heart, lung, kidneys, liver. Anything, any treatments for those at all whatsoever, your major organs, what treatments have you had for those in the last 5 years? Heart, liver, lung, heart, liver, lung. Anything. You want to know about kidneys. Any of those treatments on your major organs is what you're looking for. So we don't care so much about the knee replacement, the back surgery, stuff like this. Your organs. There's where the problem is. So I need any treatments you've had on heart, liver, lung, kidneys in the past 5 years. Okay, not to get personal, Miss Betty. Anything with hepatitis C or anything with AIDS or HIV or anything like that. Great. Then you get to the ugly stuff. Any oxygen use. So you just ask, there's a sheet in the back of the Google Drive that goes through when you go through your medical history of the things to ask. But if you cover the major organs internally and you ask them specifically about the major organs, you're going to uncover or cover most stuff after you look at the medications. And then after you say, any other medications you've been on the last few years that you took yourself off of. Got to get deep with that. If you can't find that doctor's list, if you got the doctor's list, all the conditions, when you turn the pages, are right there. It's amazing. Good. Thank you. Glad to be able to help you out with that. If you pick up nothing but one nugget, I know sometimes I'll look at that doctor's list and I get permission from Miss Betty, look at her meds, I start flipping the pages. I just kind of do it, without making a big deal out of it. I look and I say, oh my gosh, there's hepatitis C popped up. Oh boy. And Miss Betty, let me ask you a quick question. In the past several years, any treatments for your liver, hepatitis A, B, C, anything of that nature? You're doing it nonchalantly. And that's what you're looking for, because you see on this thing that she had hepatitis C at one time. You may have an issue there. Oh, I was treated for it temporarily with Harvoni. That was a couple years ago. Haven't been on it since. it could be a red flag, because if Harvani pops up, you have a lot of carriers who won't take it. You gotta find a carrier who will. So there you go. That should help you immensely. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions tonight? All righty, thank you for attending. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your desire to improve, get better. Thanks for your interest in making yourself a pro in this business instead of someone who's just doing this haphazardly on the side. Someone who's serious about what I call becoming a doctor of insurance and learning inside. Now, I can promise you, as you apply these principles, as you use these techniques, as you take notes and implement them, you're going to get better at what you do. You're going to start closing more sales, help more people, and blessing more lives. Until we meet again next week, same bat time, same bat station, and same bat location. Well, that tells you my age, doesn't it? Good luck and good selling.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.